The Mind's Mirror. Detective Maria Alvarez had seen her share of gruesome crime scenes, but this one felt different. The old mansion on the outskirts of town had been abandoned for years, its walls covered in ivy and its windows boarded up. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. The victim, a middle-aged man, lay in the center of the grand foyer, his face frozen in a mask of terror. Blood pooled around him, seeping into the cracks of the marble floor. "Cause of death?" Maria asked, turning to the coroner, Dr. Harper. "Multiple stab wounds," Dr. Harper replied, adjusting his glasses. "But there's something strange. The wounds are deep and precise, almost surgical." Maria's brow furrowed. "Any sign of forced entry?" "No," replied Officer Jenkins, the first one on the scene. "Doors were locked, windows intact. It's like the killer just appeared out of thin air." Maria knelt beside the body, her keen eyes scanning the scene. Something was off. The placement of the body, the precision of the wounds. It all felt too deliberate, too controlled. "Who found the body?" she asked. "A neighbor," Jenkins replied. "Said he heard screams in the middle of the night. Called it in this morning." "All right," Maria said, standing up. "Let's canvass the area, see if anyone saw or heard anything unusual." As her team dispersed, Maria's mind churned with questions. Who was this man? Why was he here? And who could have done this? Days turned into weeks and the investigation stalled. The victim was identified as Jonathan Blake, a renowned psychiatrist with a reputation for helping troubled minds. But his past was a maze of secrets and shadows. Maria delved into his history, uncovering a pattern of patients who had disappeared or died under mysterious circumstances. One name stood out: Emily Grant, a young woman with a history of severe mental illness. She had been under Blake's care before vanishing without a trace. Maria tracked down Emily's last known address, a dilapidated apartment building in the heart of the city. The landlord, an elderly woman with sharp eyes, remembered Emily. "She was always so scared," she said, shaking her head, "talking about someone watching her, following her." "Did she ever mention Dr. Blake?" Maria asked. The woman nodded, said he was the only one who believed her, but she was terrified of him too. Maria's mind raced. What if Emily wasn't just paranoid? What if Blake had been manipulating her, using her feelings against her? As Maria dug deeper, she discovered a pattern of control and manipulation. Blake had a talent for getting inside his patients' heads, twisting their perceptions and making them doubt their own sanity. Emily's case was the most extreme, but there were others, patients who had been driven to the brink of madness, their lives destroyed by Blake's insidious influence. Then, a breakthrough. Maria received an anonymous tip directing her to a small secluded cabin in the woods. The tipster claimed it was connected to Blake's darker activities. Maria and her team set out immediately, the sense of urgency driving them forward. The cabin was hidden in the forest, accessible only by a narrow, winding path. Inside, they found a macabre scene, photographs of Blake's patients, including Emily, pinned to the walls, their faces marked with red X's. A large, leather-bound journal lay on a desk, filled with Blake's meticulous notes on each patient, documenting their descent into madness. But the most chilling discovery was a hidden room beneath the cabin. Inside, they found Emily, alive, but barely. She was emaciated, her eyes hollow with fear. Maria approached her gently. "Emily, my name is Maria Alvarez. I'm here to help you." Emily's eyes flickered with recognition, but she remained silent, her body trembling. As Emily recovered in the hospital, Maria pieced together the final parts of the puzzle. Blake had been experimenting on his patients, using psychological techniques to break them down and control them. Emily had been his most challenging subject, but she had resisted, forcing him to imprison her to keep his secrets. But one question remained: who killed Blake? Emily, now coherent enough to speak, provided the answer. "It wasn't me," she said, her voice shaking. "It was him." "Him?" Maria prompted. "Blake had a partner," Emily continued. "Someone who shared his twisted vision. They called him the Mirror. He was the one who watched us, who carried out Blake's orders." Maria's blood ran cold. There was another player in this deadly game, someone even more elusive and dangerous. As Maria pursued this new lead, she found herself drawn into a web of deception and danger. The Mirror was always one step ahead, leaving a trail of cryptic messages and gruesome scenes. Each encounter pushed Maria closer to the edge, testing her resolve and her sanity. Then, the final confrontation. Maria tracked the Mirror to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Inside, the walls were lined with mirrors, creating a disorienting maze of reflections. Maria moved cautiously, her gun drawn, her senses on high alert. "You've done well, detective," a voice echoed through the space. "But this is where it ends." The Mirror stepped into view, a tall, shadowy figure with a mask that reflected Maria's own face back at her. "Who are you?" Maria demanded. "I'm the one who sees," the Mirror replied, "the one who knows your deepest fears." Maria's heart pounded. "Why did you kill Blake?" "Because he betrayed me," the Mirror said, voice dripping with venom. "He thought he could control me, but he was wrong. I am the master of my own mind." In a flash, the Mirror lunged. Maria fired the bullet, shattering the mask. The figure collapsed, revealing a face twisted with rage and madness. As police swarmed the scene, Maria stood over the Mirror's body, a sense of hollow victory washing over her. The case was closed, but the scars would remain. Months passed, and life slowly returned to normal. Maria resumed her duties, but the events of the case haunted her. One evening, she received a package at her office. Inside was a small, ornate mirror and a note. "Dear Detective Alvarez, you've done well, but remember, the mind's mirror reflects all, even you." Signed, the Mirror. Maria's blood ran cold. She stared at her reflection, the shadows of doubt creeping in. The case was over, but the psychological game had just only begun.